Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Electronics Asia Conference hosted by EE Times. My name is Venkata Simhadri. I'm the MD and CEO of Moschip. So today's topic is about the supply chain, semiconductor supply chain in India, the status and the future of it. Unfortunately, uh, if you really refer the supply chain to the manufacturing, the supply chain for semiconductors is non-existent in India today. To make this, discussion a little bit more meaningful, I have expanded the context to cover both design services as well as IP, where India has been doing reasonably well. So this is the high-level content for the today's topic, and I will kind of give you an overall view of the semiconductor industry today and where it is heading. So we all know that the last 3-4 years, there has been increasing attention to the semiconductor industry worldwide. Either it happened due to the COVID pandemic or other geopolitical reasons. The industry is getting a lot of attention worldwide. So if you look at the industry 30 years ago in 80s, most of the semiconductor chips were going into PCs. That's when the the revolution, personal computer revolution started. And later on, the connectivity, the internet, and the networking and the connectivity for these computers, that kind of created companies like Broadcoms and Marvells and Qualcomms. And so they started developing these chips that enable these computers to connect and talk to each other. So that's probably the second wave of demand for the semiconductor chips. Later on, the mobile phone revolution really caught up. And initially the regular mobile phones, then the smartphones, and today every year companies like Apple coming up with a new model and with more powerful and with more memory and more capabilities than the previous so some of these phones, they kind of for example digital cameras and GPS systems, all these things are integrated into one smartphone, and they made all these other devices completely obsolete. So these mobile phones have been really fueling the growth demand for semiconductor industries. People thought maybe after some time this thing will saturate, but we don't see any slowdown for that. Now the other factors are also increasing the demand for semiconductors, especially the automobiles and the electric vehicles. This is one area the semiconductor industry is going to benefit quite a bit. And the other areas, naturally, the cloud data centers, the increasing demand for this storage. For example, almost every second or third Indian today has a smartphone with them. They're all using Facebooks and Twitters, and they take unlimited pictures and videos with it, and they're all getting updated and uploaded into things like Facebooks, and they're creating so much demand for this. And also India is a huge market for movies, and nowadays every movie is getting released on OTTs, and that's another area. There is a huge requirement for data centers. So basically all I'm saying is the demand for semiconductors is not slowing down, and there are new and more aggressive demanding applications like 5G, AI, ML continue to increase the demand for semiconductors. And so there is absolutely no slowdown for the demand of chips. They may be moving from one area to another area. For example, the last 2, 3 years, there was a huge demand for laptops created by work from home. And the demand may be replaced by 5G chips and data centers and AI, ML, and automotive chips. So overall, the industry continues to grow, and it is expected to reach a trillion dollar industry by 2030. That's what the forecast is. But the biggest question here is today, where does India stand? What kind of role India is really playing in this overall, industry? So this is the, slide that's talking about the same thing I spoke about earlier. The growth is coming from multiple areas, not just one area. The 5G, India just started announcing that the carriers like AT&T and Airtel and Reliance, they started doing some trial runs with 5G. And naturally, the other area is the electric scooters and electric vehicles and all these ADAS systems that's going in there. The demand for semiconductors is also increasing there. So coming back to the situation in India, we all know that it's kind of driven by only two types of companies, either multinationals like Intel's, AMD's, or Samsung's having their own design centers, even like Qualcomm, and they're continuously hiring local talent to do design work for them. And then there are a few, mostly design services companies addressing the needs for these companies, creating the talent, training them, and providing workforce for these large multinational companies. So there is no really a semiconductor fabless product company in India today that's really making an impact in the global market. I'm heading a company called Moschip, for example. Moschip started 20 years ago as a fabless product company, and we designed mostly connectivity chips like USB, PCIe, Ethernet, and we got them fabricated at UMC and got them packaged and tested in Taiwan, and we shipped millions of them. And things were going well for Moschip at that time, and it was making an impact in India as well as outside Asia. But unfortunately, the company had to change the charter for various reasons. And today we are more focused on turnkey ASICs and design services. So if you set aside Moschip, the other companies, like mostly the IT companies, IT services companies like Wipros, HCLs, and many other companies, they're also providing design services in semiconductor chip design. Unfortunately, none of them are really investing any products or IP that can compete globally. So it's kind of I don't say completely a sad situation, but it's not a very good situation where the semiconductor also, right, the companies also provide, following the same path as IT services companies, are more focused on services rather than creating products or IP. Okay. But that needs to change moving forward, and I will talk more about it. So as I said, the whole semiconductor supply chain in India today, it's non-existent. We done very well in the system level manufacturing. In fact, India has done extremely well in the mobile phone manufacturing. And starting 2014, various government policies really helped the local manufacturing of mobile phones. As I understand today, India has become the second largest mobile phone manufacturer in the world, especially Samsung and Apple. They have multiple manufacturing centers in India today. They're not only addressing the local market, as well as exporting to other countries worldwide. So it's a pretty good news for us. But unfortunately, every component, a capacitor or a diode or a resistor, and if you go to the next level, a CPU or a power management chip in there, or a connectivity chip in the cell phone, every component is imported. Nothing is manufactured in India. So the government is concerned about it, and they have come up with a very aggressive plan of putting together $10 billion incentives to bring manufacturing to India. Not only manufacturing, it also covers there is a scheme called DLI, design linked incentive, to support the fabless startup companies in India as well. Okay. So as I mentioned, things are kind of moving forward in India, looking positive. The whole attention to the semiconductor industry started happening during this COVID situation. Sudden demand for laptops. I mean, there were literally like 5-6 months waiting periods for to buy a simple laptop, because most of the companies were switching to work from home, and there were no laptops available or desktops available in the market, and including mass chip. We were literally dependent on sourcing these things either second hand or from leasing sources to meet our needs. And naturally, many automotive companies, they increase the waiting times for to deliver a car or a scooter or something like that. And people started really paying attention to the semiconductor things. I mean, people who didn't know anything about a semiconductor chip talking about it, and they started realizing the need for becoming, at least develop some self-sufficiency. The Indian government came up with the name, slogan for it, Atmanirbhar, uh, to, for semiconductor chips. So it's a good sign. And, not only the Indian government, the governments across the world, including US and Europe, paying attention to the semiconductor industry and semiconductor supply chain. They all want to have some local control on this. So coming back to the situation in India, we done reasonably well on the design side, especially creating the workforce that can address the design capabilities. This is the latest stats I have. Again, I'm going with the industry reports I have. India today, has more than 120,000 chip designers. Most of them work for companies like Intel, Qualcomm, Microns, and AMDs, and Samsungs, and design services companies like Moss Chips and other IT services companies. And so we done well last 20 years. In fact, 20 years ago, when I first started my chip design layout training center in India, the skills for doing chip layouts in India was non-existent. This was in 1998. Today, I can say that every um, semiconductor design center in India has um, engineers trained by either my training center or other training centers in India, and we done well in creating the capacity for it. So that is a good news, but the demand is far exceeding than the supply today. And that's because most of these multinational companies and design services companies, they are having a huge demand, to serve both local companies as well as the multinationals, and we continue to hire and train people. And so, as I said, right, the workforce, people say that it is, India has world's 20% of the designers. But the sad news is that we still don't have a single semiconductor product company out of India. And there is not really a single chip we can brag about that went into volume production by an Indian company, an Indian product company that's competing globally. So the situation needs to change. The government, and the whole industry and the government does understand, and we are putting, putting a focused effort on this particular aspect of it. So as I said, the manufacturing supply chain, India is trying to address it by this, various schemes, providing capital subsidy for both fabs and OSATs. And in parallel, they're also focusing on the fabless ecosystem to help create product companies that can still use the fabs, the leading foundries outside, like TSM or global foundries, and who can design the chips for those foundries, bring the wafers to India, and package them and test them locally for both domestic as well as global needs. So that effort is going on. It will take some time to create, produce the results, but both the government and the industry is focused on it. So as I said, in the short term, the Indian government is focusing on the fabless ecosystem, and because the fabs and other things, it will take some time. Since we have the design talent available, this is one area government can immediately focus on. The main reason is that, even I believe to a certain extent that India should focus on fabless ecosystem. If you look at the top 20 semiconductor companies in the world, only few of them have really fabs. If you look at Intel, Samsung, maybe Micron, some of these companies have fabs, but the rest of them are all fabless companies like Broadcom, AMD, including Qualcomm. They don't really have fabs. And why can't India do that? And that's what we should really focus on. And that is what is going to happen. And but another area India should focus on is to create that ecosystem. If you look at India, we have very good design talent, but the expertise and the infrastructure to take a chip to volume production. Okay, you tape out a chip, the wafer comes back. After that, how do you really make it production worthy, right? Bringing up that chip and qualifying it and doing a failure analysis on it and releasing it to volume production. That expertise and infrastructure is missing, in my opinion, today. It may be there in small pockets, but that expertise needs to be developed to make a successful entry into the fabless product companies. Again, I talked about this. This is one area India should focus on, bringing up that the post tape out expertise and the infrastructure, and bringing up some OSATs in India will certainly help that. And that is also happening in parallel. And another 2-3 years, I do see enough infrastructure to handle this. So the conclusion is the supply chain for semiconductor industry in India is non-existent today, especially on the manufacturing side. India, definitely the new incentive program will help, but I think in parallel we should focus more on the fabless ecosystem. And again, in my opinion, this is strictly my personal opinion, the cutting edge fabs focusing on 5 nanometer and below it will take some time to happen in India. I mean, I don't see that happening in the short term. But there are other areas India can still focus on, and especially the mixed signal fabs. I recently, read a news that Tower Jazz is tying up with a local, company to set up a fab near Mysore. It is a good news. It can address a lot of India needs like automotive and IoT related chips. And compound semiconductors and OSATs, another area India can do that. They don't need billions of dollars of investment. And there is also going to be enough demand, local demand for those type of applications. And we already talked about a local support structure for chip bringing up and productization. And India should continue to invest in design talent. End of the day, that is our core strength, and we should continue to focus on it. And the incentive system should focus along with the manufacturing should continue to focus on the fabless product and IP companies as well. They should incentivize them to create a complete ecosystem here in India. With that, I thank you very much for this opportunity, and I will be happy to address any questions from the audience. And thanks to E Times for giving me this opportunity. Have a nice day.